All right, it's time for the John Riggins Show. I'm Tod Castleberry along with Dexter Manley, and here's Riggo.
Thank you, Todd. Where do we start this whole thing? First, let's go back in time just a little bit. The John Riggins Show hasn't been seen since November of 2011, so we are out of the box now. We've come out of from being furloughed for about almost 10 years now. And it's been quite a while, and it was a fun ride back then, and I think we're going to have a fun ride this time around. I'm looking forward to this. We're going to be on Fridays. We're going to put the show out on Fridays and on Tuesdays. It's going to be pretty much like it's always been, folks. I shoot from the hip for the most part.
Dexter's kind of shy, though, if we can get him to blossom a little bit.
Yeah, Dexter, we got to bring him out of the get him.
He's getting better like a bottle of wine.
I'm not shy. I'm not shy.
He's just
I was almost going to say get him out of the closet, but that has a bad connotation. I didn't want to say that.
Well, I tell you what, it's really
good. But he could be hiding in the
It's
closet.
really good to get him out of the hospital.
That is an excellent
2020's been a really tough year for everybody with this pandemic. Hopefully it's the once-in-a-lifetime deal.
Well, for Dexter, it very well may be, seeing how he's always been down that road with the COVID-19.
Yeah.
Dexter, what month did that occur for you that you tested positive?
That was March.
That's been that far.
Yeah, it was March.
So when did you go into the hospital?
Like maybe March 8th or 9th, somewhere.
Is that
like
right?
That. Yeah.
So you were really right at the very beginning of it.
At the very beginning.
Any idea where you think you might have picked it up from?
Hey, I probably gave you. You probably got it from you. I remember I saw you at the grocery store. And you gave me a hug. Next thing I know, I had the virus.
John's been feeling...
Typhoid Johnny.
Riggo's been feeling pretty good, so...
Okay. That's what he said today.
I shed it off of me and I didn't mean to, of course, but I said, here, cooties, get off me. Dexter's right over there. He's a much better host than I am.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I don't know where I picked it up from. I just went to the track one Saturday, and Sunday I didn't feel so good. Definitely Monday I didn't feel so good. And then I went to the hospital. They transferred me from Sibley to Georgetown. And
that was really out of precaution because you've been treated numerous times at Georgetown and know all the doctors there.
Yeah. No, but see, what happened, Georgetown had all the medications that would help you with the COVID.
Okay.
Some hospitals didn't have it.
Sibley was one of them. They didn't have the stuff.
See, the doctor did my brain surgery. Said I want him over at Georgetown.
Oh, okay.
Because they had all.
And you were familiar with the whole thing and everything.
Right. Yeah. And so I went in there and got well. Got better.
Do you recall what your symptoms were? You said you wasn't feeling well, but I mean, did you have a fever?
I had a fever. A fever was like about 102, somewhere in that neighborhood. I didn't feel. I was fatigued.
Right.
Had some chills. So almost like the flu.
I saw Dexter. Dexter records Cameo. For anybody out there like a shout out, a greeting during fantasy football, Dexter's great at talking trash. Hit him up on Cameo. Great price too. Little plug for you, D.
Yeah, okay, good.
So we were recording cameos in here, and you did not look well. This wasn't the secretary.
And this was like the day before?
Yeah, it was a Saturday.
Yeah, the Secretary of Defense should have been on the IR.
Right, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was afraid I would pass it over, but
you didn't tell me.
Well,
you didn't tell me, Dex.
It was secret.
I didn't tell Dex either.
Yeah.
It is. It's like the secret handshake.
Yeah.
So you ended up 3 weeks in the hospital recuperating?
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Not on the ventilator. I was on the oxygen.
So luckily, you never had to go on the ventilator.
I didn't have to go on the ventilator. But sometimes I would come out of my room and walk around, saw people on the ventilator. Very scary. They was like in a bubble. And
do they have tubes in them? The ventilator? I've been wondering if they.
Yeah, they got tubes. They got tubes in them. Yes, and they just stretched on their back, looked like they're asleep. It was scary.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. If you thought, when did they tell you that you've tested positive for COVID and that's what you're suffering from?
Well, I went to my current general practitioner. He asked, no, he's not my. He's my.
Close enough.
No.
Good doctor.
I got it. I just can't. Hold on. He's my
gynecologist.
My gynecologist.
Your gynecologist.
We waited all that time for that.
Well, I got to get it together, man. My gynecologist.
Solid.
My gynecologist.
No wonder you were in the hospital for 3 weeks, Dexter.
So what is this like? You really are coming out then? I had no idea what I was talking about, but I was on to something.
Well,
So are you going to Sweden anytime soon? I think they do really nice work over there.
Yeah.
Get you a deal.
Yeah. Well.
So anyway, you saw your gynecologist or your doctor.
Yeah, the doctor, and I saw him. He gave me a place to go take the physical. Take the test, and that was like on a Monday or two. That was on Tuesday. He called me on Wednesday and told me I tested positive. And
You did call me Thursday to tell me you tested positive. Lydia called me, your wife, and said, "Hey, Dexter tested positive. We're quarantining. Wanted to give you a heads up."
Yeah.
Quarantining meaning you were just going to stay at home?
That's what the doctor told me to stay at home.
Yeah.
Even when you're testing positive, they don't.
Right.
They don't
just
necessarily-
self-quarantine.
Self-quarantine. So I slept in one room, Lydia slept out in the living room. And I kept the door closed for about a day.
But then when you started to really start to go downhill, that's when you realized they said get to the hospital.
Get to the hospital. She put an oximeter on me, and my level got down somewhere like in the 80s, low 80s.
Yeah, that's really low.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
what little
It's supposed to be high 90s, right?
Right, and you get down into the lower 90s, it's like a strain, I think, on your organs and stuff. And you were in the 80s.
So I was somewhere like 81, 82, and Lydia took me over to Sibley Hopkins. I got to say Hopkins.
Sibley Hopkins. Very well played.
Yeah. Well, I say that because they're supposed to be the cream of the crop.
They're not getting any plugs here, Dex, so we're good. It's
okay.
We all know
Just don't
Sibley.
mention the first name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sibley. So anyway,
Sibley
they
Hopkins.
transferred me to Georgetown, and they put me.
That was Saturday.
Saturday.
I got another phone call. I got a great phone call from your wife. Now I'm in the loop.
You in the
now
loop.
After I spent a bunch of time with you.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the loop.
You're on
Starting to wonder what's going on.
You're on top of your game. Hey, you weren't sneaking over to my place, were you?
No, Dex wouldn't do that.
Okay.
If anything, he was just checking up, make sure everything was in order.
Okay.
And everything was.
Okay, good.
So anyway, you're in the hospital. They tell you that you are suffering from COVID-19.
Yeah.
You've been there. You're not feeling well. You were there a total of 3 weeks. So there's obviously a long, either incubation or your thoughts. But I mean, were there moments where it went through your mind that you might not leave the hospital, going out on your own accord? That you might be going out the back of the hospital?
Well, when I first got to the hospital, that was my thought process. I was kind of out of it, coming in, going out. And every time I would see a doctor, I would ask him, am I going to live? Someone said, we got you. So another lady came in. It was a lady doctor. I said, am I going to live? She said, I don't know.
And you said, thank you for your honesty.
I said, you've
just made my day.
Can I go back to Sibley? George sounds overrated.
Can I go back to sleep? You, out of here.
This was your pulmonologist?
Pulmonologist.
Plume?
Plum.
Palm.
Okay, well, I'm going to take your...
That's good, pulmonologist. I like that. That's good. Obviously something to do with the lungs.
Yeah, right. So she told me...
She said maybe.
Did you say, would you mind explaining that comment? Or did she go into detail saying, well, there's a couple things going on here? And then,
Well, my first thought was that she was a Cowboy fan. Because
that would make sense.
Because everybody...
They're still a little pissed about Danny White and that game.
Well, everybody, such diehard Redskin fans around, even at Georgetown, and sometime I would know who's a Cowboy, who's a hater.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the way it is. Have you been in a hospital around here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you get the same vibe or...
Yeah, but for the most part, I guess at least where I've been around in the hospital, I've never really come across the Cowboy fan. It's always usually just all Washington fans.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I thought maybe this is a Cowboy fan. This lady asked me. She said, I'm not going. She said she didn't know. I started to ask her, but I didn't. So, but just. Yeah.
Did you ask her what her percentage is, over the course of time?
I was stretched on the bed.
Dex wanted to get a bet down.
Yeah.
I figured she was making both
Sounds
off
she
of
was
it.
going to MGM and let it ride.
Yeah, and so she told me that. But I tell you one thing that, some things just sort of private. Okay, I got stopped up.
Okay, so you're constipated.
I don't know how that happened. And the lady wanted to put some up my butt to have me to go to the bat to
An
relieve
enema?
myself.
An enema?
It's important.
Yeah, but I wasn't
Rico
gonna,
used to get these before every game. The legend has it. We'll
Yeah.
get into that later.
yeah, but I wasn't gonna let her stick that up. And she said, "Can she do it?" I said, "No, that's invasive."
Okay, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so.
That's
I'd say give it your best shot, honey. Let's see what you got.
This COVID is bad.
See if you can hit that prostate, will you?
COVID is bad. You get catheters.
Anyway,
This is fun. I want to come back.
I relieved myself, and it
What
was
time
all-
tomorrow are you going to be here? So everything, bad pun, everything worked out.
Everything worked out.
So you had all kinds of issues going on.
I did,
You know,
I did.
regular decks
Yeah.
but the main thing is, because I remember getting the phone call on a Saturday, and it was great concern that things didn't improve for you. They're gonna have to pop you on the ventilator.
That's correct.
And I got a great phone call from Lydia Sunday
That's
morning
right.
saying overnight that you're not going to believe it.
Right.
Incredible news.
Yeah.
That you had this miraculous recovery, your symptoms, everything in less than 12 hours had improved so much that they're like going, no need for the ventilator.
I contribute that to the physicality. I was exercising, going to the gym, and that's probably what saved me.
Yeah, when you talk about going to the track, and you know this, John, when people that hear Dexter says, "Yeah, I went to the track," he's not betting the ponies or anything else. Dexter
But
is
I
at the
wonder.
track, walking,
and
doing your work, and you do it early, like 5, 6 a.m., don't you?
Yeah. Well,
When you say the track, though, where will you go to a track?
YMCA in Bethesda.
They have an indoor track in there?
outdoor
Outdoor
track.
track.
Outdoor
Oh, they
track.
do?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't
You
know.
gonna come join me?
No, I don't think so. I ride a bike, but
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
already down the cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
do
I know-
people
I know-
stop? Do people, if you ride on a cab, does people stop you and
all
want
the time.
pictures?
It just gets so old.
Are you kidding?
Everybody,
Are
every
you
time I
kidding?
go,
They're like,
they start crying.
Pops, get out of my lane. He's told me more stories about the CNO bike path over there and the confrontations. It's,
Oh, really?
Oh,
that'll
it
be
is. It gets a
that'll-
little. It can get tough down there. People just assume that the canal. Well, not the canal itself, but the actual tow path that the mules walked up and down from Georgetown to Cumberland, Maryland, that it belongs to them. So they'll be walking down 4 abreast in one direction, and you're on a bicycle, and you're coming up from behind, and you're hollering, saying, "Hey, give me a side, give me a side."
track.
And they just stay. I mean, that only happened once, and then it's like, and you get right on top of them, and then finally they turn around, and they get all scared, and they jump out of your way. Anyway,
Well, Dexter, most importantly,
Yeah.
your recovery, you did everything correctly from that point on. You had to do a lot of breathing exercises. Great to see you back.
Well, thanks for having me.
You look fantastic.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
Good to see the
Oh, it's a
Secretary
pleasure.
of Defense. Well, so now we're into the pandemic, and here we are. We finally got some NFL football last night. World champion Kansas City Chiefs played the Houston Texans in front of a very limited pandemic crowd at the stadium last night. I know you guys got to check it out. What were your thoughts?
well, I tell you, first of all, the crowd, interesting. I told my wife, I said, there's probably about 10,000 people there, and then I think I heard Al Michaels say somewhere around 15 to 20, I think, is what the crowd, because, you look at that stadium and it holds
87.
yeah, I think it was like 80, somewhere around in that.
Yeah.
And you think about that, and I'm thinking to myself, and we've discussed this before, Dexter, what it would have been like being a player last night out on the field. And now there's going to be some stadiums that have absolutely no fans. I think Washington's one of them, right?
Only 6 teams are allowing
Fans in.
controlled fans.
Yeah,
and
so
crowd.
I'm wondering what that was like to be a player, even though, and I'm wondering if they actually piped a little, crowd noise into the broadcast or even down there on the stadium, because although Michael did say something to the effect that, well, they're making, for considering how small the crowd is, they're making pretty good noise here. But that was, to me, football's back, and it feels the same, and yet it isn't the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The uniforms and the players. I thought actually overall the quality of play in that, I was surprised that it was as good as it was. And I think I called you last night and basically said, well, we can forget about preseason games from now on.
Yeah.
You won't have those anymore.
Yeah,
They're
well,
done.
I echo what you, the same sentiments that you had. But I was a little concerned about, with no preseason game, what the quality going to be the first opening night. And I thought the quality was good. But they did also said in the broadcast it's going to be 17,000 fans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sounds about right.
17,000. But I just thought the play was good. I like to see my hometown win. And
Yeah,
they come up
it
short.
was a tough night. They didn't look all that sharp. I mean, Kansas City. That offense was pretty much unstoppable. You knew once in the third quarter when they came back out and scored that touchdown in the third, it was over.
Well, I was
you know-
asleep by then.
Well, I will say this: to me, when Houston when they had the ball and they had an opportunity to get some points right before the half,
Yep.
they missed the field goal,
Yep.
which probably wouldn't have made
Badly.
any difference because Kansas City was going to get the ball back with a little bit of time on the clock, and it's amazing that they bite off 40 yards before you know it, and the next thing you know, they kick a field goal. So it was almost like where they lost 6 points on that exchange because they had a chance to move down, get all the time off the clock, and get themselves 3 points. So when that happened, then I thought, well, okay, it's looking uphill for the Texans. But then when they came back to start the second half, and I saw that they were kicking off to the Chiefs, I kind of went, nope, this ain't going to work out for the Texans. Had the Texans got the ball in the second half, and had they scored, then you might have thought, well, they might be able to make something happen. But when I saw Kansas City was getting the ball, and sure enough, they take the ball and go right down and get.
See, with COVID, I can't seem to stay up. I go to bed early, and you didn't have COVID. How do you stay up?
I don't know, Dex. It's just my wife doesn't go to bed at night, so I gotta well, she goes to bed, she just don't go to sleep.
Yeah,
so I had to stay up and watch.
Yeah.
Well, it was football, and what the heck, it wasn't that. Normally we know a lot of times though we don't eat till 9, 10 o'clock at night. A lot of times, I mean, we're I guess it's an old habit I got in New York City. It's got New Yorkers that.
Dexter, you're an early bird.
I'm an
I
early
noticed
bird.
that about you.
Yeah, I'm an
Hey,
early
Well, my
bird.
brother's an early bird.
Yeah.
I got my brother Bill's out in Kansas. If he's up past 8 o'clock at night, I mean, he's really burning the midnight oil.
Yeah.
And at 7:30, he calls it a night.
Yeah.
Which and there's part of me that wish that I could do that, but there's no way it's going to happen in my household. I don't know, because they say that we're not nocturnal animals. We're diurnal. We're awake during the day.
Yeah.
We sleep at night.
Okay,
So
well,
anyway, that's how I stay awake.
So before we get into the Washington football team and their opener against the Philadelphia Eagles this Sunday, I want to ask you guys your very first professional experiences. John, you played in 1971. You said it played against the Baltimore Colts at the old War Memorial.
No, War Memorial was Buffalo, unless they
Oh,
called
that's right.
that.
That's right. At the old,
It was
old
just Memorial Stadium.
Just Memorial,
I guess
Memorial
just
Stadium
Baltimore
over
Memorial
in Baltimore.
Stadium, built in 1953. I still remember that. What do you call it? What do you call it? Carved or whatever on the side of the actual stadium itself. I'm pretty sure that's right. 1953. Although the steel trap was correct this morning, but then I think you were correct as well on the deal. But yeah, it was down in Baltimore. That's where I opened it up in a monsoon. Rain from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Matt Snell had gotten hurt, who was the starting fullback for the Jets back in those days. I was the first-round draft pick, and so I was the starting fullback that day. I can't remember. And Emerson Boozer was the running back. Namath was not the quarterback. He'd been injured in a preseason game down in Tampa against the Detroit Lions about 3 or 4 weeks prior to that. But it rained like cats and dogs. And Norm Boulash, which some people may remember,
Yes.
I think he was from Texas, A&M maybe, but not. It's some school down in Texas. He ran for over 200 yards that day in that sloppy field.
Norm Boulash, a mutter.
Norm tore it up. Yeah, and I probably had 40 or 50 yards. But nothing great.
Were you apprehensive?
Oh, yeah. You got to appreciate the fact, though, coming from Kansas as I did, and, you're going to New York City. I mean, just complete culture shock there. And even though, and I played in the All-Star game in Chicago, which they don't have anymore, but that was before even the exhibition game started. And so I had to join the team, and I was in Chicago for, I think, 3 weeks. So I missed about a good 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks of training camp. So I had to, play catch up. And but I was a first-round draft pick of the Jets, 6th pick overall. But it didn't really mean much to me because for whatever reason, I didn't have the kind of confidence like, oh yeah, this is going to be. I can hardly wait. It was kind of like as so many things in my life. Well, today, they're going to find out that I'm just really not who they thought I was. It's going to be very embarrassing, but I'm not giving back the signing bonus. So yeah, I was a little bit apprehensive. Now I'd already played in some exhibition games, and my first exhibition game was terrible, and was as you would expect in the New York press, was just ripped apart. Then the very next game, I think one of the headlines was he went from bust to bombshell. So you kind of like, okay. So but it didn't really, now you're playing for real. It's not exhibition season anymore. And, you walk out of that and you kind of you turned a corner, so to speak. But at the same time, literally what I told you, for the next 14, 15 years, actually, because I said a year out, every game was the same, so it wouldn't really make any difference. I mean, I look back on it, and the same fears that I had before that first game was there with me to the very last game, which is always that fear of failure, that today you're found out to be the fraud that you are. So, but, you put in 14 years, and after the fact, you go, well, it took them a long time to figure it out. That's all I can say.
I got a question. 1971, what would your signing bonus be like?
$45,000.
Yeah.
6th pick overall.
Well,
I was stroking.
Sixth overall.
Yeah, but a Corvette only cost $6,000 back then.
There
So
you
we'll
go.
put a little perspective on it. I priced one, never bought it, but I priced one. I stayed with my '63 Chevy Biscayne stick on the column.
Drive that in from Kansas to the big city?
Aftermarket air conditioning, which didn't work. Yes, I did. I drove it from. That was my car in college, and I just drove it all the way up to New York City.
So
that was my
Dex,
car.
you make your debut against the Dallas Cowboys, 1981. You were a fifth-round pick?
Fifth round
So
pick.
what was your signing bonus?
45.
45,000.
Still, yeah.
You were 45 10 years later.
Right.
Okay,
But
so
a
first round
fifth round
to the
draft
fifth
pick.
round, right?
Yeah, but I had to pay back 5,000. 5,000. No, it was $10,521.20
For what?
to the federal government.
Oh!
for
I thought you had to give it
taxes.
back to Mr. Cook.
No.
But he thought fine. You were fined. I thought Joe Gibbs fined one. I don't remember Dexter being late for camp.
Yeah,
I don't.
not taxes. When I was in college, my father died July 19th, 1977. Okay, and so I didn't know, but people, another teammate, mother say you get Social Security. So I filed for
So
Social.
you collected some Social
I was
Security?
getting Social Security, and I was married in high school. My 12th grade year, I got married because
And
we
you could stay in school. A lot of times, when you got married, you're out of school.
Yeah, well, I didn't have to do that.
He was football Dexter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was John Riggins. Of course, I wasn't married in high school, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Why'd I interject? Go ahead, Dex. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, I got married in high school, and on the form, they want to know all your information. I lied on the form because when I went to college, I was a single guy, and I didn't think I was married, so I lied on the information.
So Dexter, what did this 10,500 and such and 20 cents teach you?
Yeah, stop lying.
Well, and I proved. I mean, to me, it just realized, and I told you that I was always concerned that they would eventually find me out for the fraud that I was. Dexter was found out for the fraud that he was. Early.
Different
So
type
he didn't
of
have to
fraud.
suffer any of that.
Different type of fraud.
Fraud does not pay.
And you
Fraud-
also learned a term called garnishment.
Yeah, that's right.
Garnishment.
Garnishment.
Let that be a lesson, boys and girls.
That's right.
So they carried you all the way through college, the government. They carried you. In other words, I don't know, did they stick you for interest on all this stuff?
No. The judge was leaning toward me because of Jimmy Johnson. And
Once again, football Dexter. It's good to be football Dexter.
They went to some kind of district judge in Oklahoma City, and the chancellor of the school wrote a nice letter. And most time people probably
And this, it's a little indiscretion, a youthful indiscretion, I think we call it.
yeah.
Well, true, but you were still in college, and then the government found out that you were being signed by the New York or by the
Redskins.
Washington football team, and that you were going to get a signing bonus, and all of a sudden the Fed said, "Hey, Dex, come on down here. We need to talk to you." Is that the way it worked?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what happened. When they first approached me, it's almost like it was kind of like I was on the football field, spring, almost close to spring, and we out there throwing around with my position coach, and I see two guys, white guys, come down there in black suit, and I'm thinking, what the?
Is Men in Black?
Yeah, and they
MIB?
and they say Manley. They called me over.
That's never good.
Oh, that's
never
like
good.
ruin your day type stuff
Yeah,
when
I'm
you
thinking-
see two
I
guys.
just said I was just playing catch.
Yeah. They said, we
Like,
know
what
you
did
went
I
into
do?
Social Security office in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And
We'd like our money back.
yeah, they said that we got to.
Did they say they weren't going to arrest you, were they? Or
No,
what?
they didn't arrest me.
They just said, we need a check and we need it by so-and-so?
Yeah,
to that
well,
effect?
then I had to go to court. I
Oh,
went
I
to court
see.
in Oklahoma City.
I got you.
Yeah.
They just apprised you of your situation.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so you still net about $34,000 and change off your signing bonus. I got to imagine that's still a lot of money.
Yeah, to a brother from the hood.
And even in 1981.
But at the same time, it was a pay cut compared to where he was.
From
whatever
Jimmy
he's-
Johnson, OK State.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that
We're
Dex
gonna
lived
say
large.
we're gonna save the story for another podcast where we
Okay.
find out that Dexter got a car as part of his deal, and John Riggins
I'm not happy about it. I don't sleep sometimes at night if that idea pops into my
You're
head.
going to want to hear that story.
Okay.
All right. So 1981, you make the team, and,
Make the
and,
team.
and you're gonna play in your very first game, and
Yeah,
you pretty much know it's going to be special teams.
Special teams. They had quarterback. But I tell you one reason I think how I made that football team. John was talking about Memorial Stadium, correct? That's
Yeah.
Baltimore. We played the Baltimore Colts
Colts.
in a preseason game. I think that was the last. I don't know what the last. But anyway, Burt Jones was the quarterback, and he rolled my way, and I gave him the club. I stretched him out. Yeah,
I think you were going to make the team regardless, Dex, because you don't find many guys with your set of skills.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
well, I walked him down, stretched him out, and next thing I know, the whole offensive line, we got into a
little tussle.
Yeah.
yeah. But I could tell you that the defensive coaches, they really appreciated that my play walking down this guy and stretching Burt Jones out a little bit. And the next week was the Cowboys.
Burt had pretty good wheels too as a quarterback.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
he was-
Burt could scramble.
Yeah, he was a big guy.
Yeah, he was pretty big.
Yeah, a big guy. And so the next week, Cowboys week up, I know I was going to be on special teams.
How to feel a kid from Texas.
Oh,
a
man.
kid from Texas,
Man, you
knowing
know-
what the Cowboys mean in the state.
Yeah, right.
And it's
right.
your first game.
Yeah. Well, I get emotional talking about it because my whole family, all of my dad's people, they're all from, and they love the Cowboys.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah. They love the Cowboys.
I lost the gift of hearing.
Yeah. They love the Cowboys. And I hear I'm the nephew, the cousins, and all this kind of big deal, man.
So the kid from Ward
Third
3,
Ward. Third Ward.
Houston,
Third Ward.
and they had to be extraordinary.
Yeah, that was a big deal, man.
Was any of them at the game?
No, because we played here.
Well, Dallas. It would have been Dallas, and
Oh,
you're
when
from
I would
Houston.
go to
But I
Dallas-
thought maybe some of them came up for
Yeah,
the game
yeah.
or whatever. I had no idea.
From the hood, man.
Yeah, I got you.
That's just like I only got 34,000 to change. If I had got that other 10,
Yeah, maybe I could have put somebody on a bus.
Well, so I just knew going to that game, I was thinking about I was a little kid. I used to like Dwayne Thomas, Bob Lilly, Larry Cole, Roger Staubach,
Bullet Bob Hayes.
Billy Bob Hayes. I can go on and on. What's the other guy? Anyway, I was a big Cowboy
Roger
fan.
Staubach,
Yeah, Roger Staubach. I was a big Cowboy. Billy Joe Dupree,
Yeah.
Leroy Jordan.
Jethro Pugh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, and then I was and I grew up playing Sandlot football, and everything was the Cowboy. Had all these
Wasn't
guys.
Houston Oilers, huh?
Hell no. No, wasn't
Even
Houston.
in
Oilers.
Houston.
Yeah, not the Houston Oilers. My father liked the Houston.
Everybody was a Cowboy fan in
Yeah,
Houston? I mean, in other words, in your family.
Yeah, in my family. Yeah. They didn't care much about the Houston Oilers. It was always the Dallas Cowboys.
They were America's team, right?
Well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
true.
That's the
I mean,
illusion they created.
Yeah, they did a
Yeah,
great job.
and so going into that game, I could feel the emotions, because I had a lot of guys I grew up with, and everybody in that community. Of course, Cowboys, they ain't killing about no Redskins, and here I am having an opportunity to be on the professional level. I do remember I didn't play on defense, but I played on special teams. and Billy Joe Dupree. They double teamed me on special teams. What was it, John? What do you call that? When we punt the ball, the punt. What was
Punt
that?
coverage?
I was on the punt coverage. And what's that linebacker, Anthony Dickerson or something? It's kind of like a Money Coleman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those two guys double teamed me, and I ran over them. I ran over.
Like,
All right. That's what it should be.
Yeah, I never forget that.
how big are you? How big were you when you played?
Pardon me?
How big were you? What were you?
Oh, I was like
6'5", 270?
225.
Oh, your rookie year?
No, 245. 245.
Your rookie
And what,
year?
6'5"?
Yeah.
That's 6'5", 245?
Yeah, 6'4".
6'4".
6'4", 245.
And could
Maybe
run.
about right.
Yeah, could run.
Yeah. I could run. I could run like a deer.
Well, unfortunately, you got your butt kicked in the game, 26-10. The Cowboys took the first.
And that was the
Billy Joe
first-
Dupree caught the first touchdown pass.
Right.
Well, that was the first, what do you call it, the first of 5 in a row that we would take on the chin.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
that's
That we
right.
came to a crisis in Joe Gibbs' early career.
All right, well, we're going to take a short break here, guys. When we come back, we're going to get into the current Washington football team taking on the Eagles. And then Riggo's got a story about a magical moment in Redskins history.
Okay, I wanna hear it.
Redskins
Well, you were there.
Eagles that to this day, when I hear you talk about it, it's still like you get the goosebumps talking about it.
What year was this?
1981.
1981.
I mean, 82, I'm sorry.
82.
I was there.
We'll
Yes,
have
you were.
more on the John Riggins Show after this brief timeout from O'Connor Plumbing.
This is John Riggins. You know, Dirty Harry once said a man's got to know his limitations. And when it comes to do-it-yourself plumbing, be careful, but not afraid. Today, the pros at O'Connor Plumbing are going to show us a few things we can do and a few things maybe we ought to leave to the pros. We're down in the basement, and I'm with Fred from O'Connor Plumbing, and Fred and I have been talking about sump pumps, and I think that's what we're standing in front of. And Fred has told me about some of the dangers of ones that don't work. So, Fred, go ahead and tell everybody else what you told me.
Well, John, a sump pump is used to expel water from under your house before it even gets into your basement. One, is it on an integrated circuit all by itself? Two, is there a check valve installed? Is there anything leaking? And then see if there's any water down in your hole. You may need to use a flashlight for that one. If you want to test it out, John, you can take a hose or a bucket, pour water in it, get it up above the level of the pump, and then it should kick on. If you don't hear it ever come on and the water gets closer and closer to your floor and covers the pump completely, then you know that it's not working, and then you want to call O'Connor.
These are a few things you can try at home if you feel lucky. But if you don't and you have doubts, call the pros at O'Connor Plumbing, like I do.
Okay, it's time now on the John Riggins Show where we are going to focus and discuss the Washington football team and the opening game for the team. We're gonna focus on the team, their performance, and so many question marks surrounding this franchise. But we're going to focus on the actual football action and brand new head coach Ron Rivera. That he got canned in Carolina, and
Who's he down there, 9 years?
it was 9 years. 9 years in Carolina.
Did he have a winning record in Carolina?
No.
Slightly,
Well, yeah, he did.
he's a little above 500.
It's kind of weird, though, out of 9 years, and we were talking about this, Todd, that he had 3 winning seasons. Is that right? No. Was it?
Yeah, it's
It's kind of a strange, what do you call it, a strange record in the sense that there's like 3 seasons that were double-digit wins, right?
Yeah, so in 2017, their last best winning record was 11-5. 2015 was that miraculous, epic
Super Bowl
season,
run.
15-1.
Well, then that's the year they went to the Super Bowl?
That's the year they went to the
That was
Super Bowl.
2015.
In 2013, they went 12-4. So three winning seasons out of 9.
9.
And they scooped him up right away. The franchise did once he became available. and unfortunately with the way that the season ended for the Burgundy and Gold last year, so they went all in. There's a complete overhaul of the front office. There's a complete overhaul of everything. I mean, let's.
Well, there's just so much controversy surrounding the team now, and it started out at the beginning of the year with the name, and it's evolved now to what's going on internally and actually in the organization itself. So I wonder what it's like to be. I mean, I'm sure Rivera is telling his players, focus on the football field. Everything else will take care of itself. That's all you. And really, it's the best advice he can give them.
Sure.
That there's nothing else to think about. I mean, you have no idea all the possibilities and all the different things that can possibly happen during this football season, actually. So, and then, they've got a rookie quarterback coming back. Well, he's not a rookie now, but their first-round draft pick from last year. And the other thing I would like to say is that there seems like there's so little information about any of the teams, really, it would seem. And that has a lot to do with the COVID, I'm guessing, because there's no reporting. Of course, I don't pay much attention. In fact, I don't watch it at all, ESPN or that kind of stuff. So, but you would think that you would hear a little bit something here and there, but you don't really have any first eyes-on, hands-on type of information to rely on for what's going on. And then the players they have, there's a bunch of them at positions that I'm surprised. I'm going, I never heard of some of these guys.
It is amazing. Yeah. It is amazing the little that anybody knows, and anybody tells you differently, they're lying.
Yeah. Well, then they lock the facilities out from the public and from the media.
Yeah, and the media is
like in the spring stuff.
No question, and even through their version of training camp, and with no preseason games, no nothing. And here's the other reality: with the collective bargaining agreement, you guys know today's practices, they're glorified walkthroughs for the most part, with the occasional day of hitting, and with COVID and everything that you ball it all up together, nobody knows anything.
Yeah. Well, I tell you one thing. When Joe Gibbs came in here, only two guys that hardly practiced, couldn't touch him, the Diesel and Joe Theismann.
That's not, wait, Dex, hold on now, time out. There's
on.
truth in what you're saying, but it ain't exactly the way it happened. When Joe Gibbs first came here, it was all hands on deck. There was nobody that had gotten any free passes. Now, I'll grant you.
You're right.
I'll grant you after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right. After that 4th and 1,
I went diva on him.
I got to tell you something. Dex told me a story yesterday.
Yeah.
He tells me a story yesterday because he had a cameo, and the gentleman that grew up, his two favorite players were Charlie Brown and Dexter Manley. So he wanted to do a shout out, and Dexter's like going, "Hey, Charlie Brown was my roommate for 3 or 4 years," and he goes, "But then I went to Bobby Mitchell, and said, I want him gone. I want him out." And he said, and I was like, well, why? How could you do that? Because John Riggins and Joe Theismann, they didn't have roommates.
Right. Yeah.
So Dexter was over there taking notes.
Yeah, especially on the road.
Yeah, but you had to pay extra. Did you know that? Maybe they looked the other way for you, Dex. I think I
didn't know you had to
for
pay
that
extra.
private room.
I didn't know you had to pay extra.
Your private room.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always thought about they could give you a roommate, and I'm thinking to myself, really, well, back in those days, when you go back far enough, nobody made enough money. They wanted to share a room with somebody. They didn't want to pay the extra.
Especially if it's coming out of your paycheck. You want to bump
That's
it
when
up.
You go, well, you know what? I guess I can put up with the snoring. No big deal.
Well, I got it. Today's modern day player, that is not something they have to worry about.
Right.
So especially with all the COVID protocols and everything, and without getting deep in the weeds on the testing, they seem so far from everything we've seen in the testing that it is not a problem. It's not an issue, and hopefully it remains that way. Everybody's a little skeptical just based on the volume of people, the masses that have to get together to go and play football and everything that is associated with it.
Well, and then, actually just the nature of the game itself, because literally it's you got to get in people's faces. The offensive lineman, defensive lineman, when you're engaged trying to get to the passer, you got a guy you're less than 6 feet apart, that's for sure. And everybody's huffing and puffing, so you're sharing some of the atmosphere with one another. So, I'm with you there on, that aspect of it. But there's also, I will say early on, and I don't know how everybody is, because for the most part, who knows? I don't think that anybody has done a very good, talking about this coronavirus, that anybody's done a real good job, and not because they didn't mean to, it's just because the knowledge keeps coming in dribs and drabs about how it's affecting and impacting people and what's the best way to prevent it. I mean, it seems to me that there's been an evolution as to how to go about your business when it comes to this coronavirus. And from that perspective, being a player, you're young, you're in your 20s, you feel like you're in great health, and you know instinctively that you seem, in your mind anyway, that you're healthier than the average guy because he can't do what I'm doing, so I must be healthier. I mean, that's just kind of the way I think an athlete
world-class
thinks.
athletes.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the way you think. So I'm sure that, some of these, some of the players that are like, well, how bad can it be? It's a virus, for crying out loud. They will tell you that the flu is something that is much more dangerous, actually, the flu, but it's not nearly as contagious. And that's
virus.
and there's the difference. So, okay, so this stuff isn't really, if I catch it, I've got a better chances, I'm dying from the flu than from COVID-19, that it really preys on older people. Once you get up into the 60s, you get into coronary heart disease, you get into diabetes, and you start having these things, then now you become, perhaps a victim of coronavirus. So my thinking is, if you, like I said, you kind of think that you're rich, tough, and good looking, that you're impervious to any of this stuff. Yeah. I can see where you go, what the hell? If I catch it, I catch it. I'll sneeze a few times and be over.
So first round draft choice, John Riggins, you're all in. You're playing.
I didn't say that. I was talking about the mindset of the current athlete who's getting paid.
I want the young John Riggins.
John Riggins. Well,
and the young Dexter Manley, you're playing, right?
I mean,
Yes.
I would have been like this. Do I get paid? And they go, if I don't play, do I get a... See, if they'd have said, look, we understand and we see where you're coming from, kind of like a conscientious objector in the military, that, we're not gonna put you in the brig because you don't want to serve, but we're not gonna say anything good about you either. I'd have to go, well, so I'm not getting paid. Well, I guess maybe I'm going to have to sign up. I'm kind of getting used to that $45,000 bonus.
Now,
I already spent it.
So, he was bored back and broke after he sat out. Now, is John Riggins circa 1984, is he playing?
Oh, well, now let's
Knowing
see.
that you're at the end of the road, you're on the 17th hole of your NFL career.
Yeah. That's a good
1984?
question. I don't know.
84, 85?
Honestly, I mean, you know what? I think I would. And I'm putting myself back in that mindset because,
Even with your two girls,
Because he didn't have, it was a different time. Go back in your mind.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that, I would have. And I probably would have when I was a rookie, too, for that matter, would have played. So I get that. Yeah, because I don't, like I said, you've survived it, Dex, and, you're in your, 50s, 60s? Are you in your 60s
I'm
yet?
62.
62.
And I've been lying for about 40 years.
We already established that earlier.
Well, he told
Just
me.
go see the Social
you didn't
Security.
learn anything from the $10,520. So he had personal appearance. I'm taking him to back in last Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Last Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And he gets in the car, and I don't know why, but out of the blue, it was like a confessional moment for you.
Yeah.
And he says, Tod, I got something to tell you. I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds serious. I've been lying about my age. I'm like, what?
You're right.
I was like, that's it. And he was only lying by about 15 or 16 months.
Right.
One of a kind.
Women
Dex.
do it all the time.
One of a kind. So young Dexter Manley, rookie, you're playing.
Of course, I'm from the hood, man. I got to play.
All right, Dexter Manley, Tampa Bay. Did you finish in Tampa Bay or Arizona?
Tampa.
Are you playing?
Yes, I'm playing because I love the game. I like the crowd. If the crowd's there, that's a big deal.
What did I just say? Money, Dex.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's all about
Yeah.
the banjo.
I will say this: in last night's opener, Kansas City, Houston, I was at a watering hole checking it out, and socially distanced bar, or what have you. Everybody's surprised. The average fan was sitting there going, when they first see the players, because we haven't seen anything,
Right.
and they're all like going, "Where are their masks?" Right? because they actually thought the players were going to be wearing some type of face shield,
yes.
or a mask, and most of them had nothing. Some had some had their regular eye protective shield, and the most funny, fascinating thing, and as the game wore on, was Andy Reid's.
Right.
His fog kept cranking up. By the end of the game, I'm not even sure he saw.
Yeah.
Was that what that was?
Yes, it was his mask kept.
I thought it was originally. Then I thought, oh, very good. They've made that part of it opaque,
You can't read his lips.
So you can't read his lips.
Fog.
It was fog.
Yes, because it started rainy and it was humid, and Andy, he needed little windshield wipers going like this.
Well, he wasn't too impressed with it either because I saw he made some comment today.
All right, so COVID, we don't know anything about it, and this Washington football team, we don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, exactly.
New coaching staff, new dynamic, new day. The expectations for one Chase Young, your first round pick. I mean, can you think of a player? Probably going. I'm guessing LeVar and Chris Samuels when they went. Well,
particularly Arrington.
Yeah.
Because you're in a position of impact. Offensive tackles, no matter how great a job. Well, I suppose on every play you could be out in front of the ball knocking somebody on their back. Then that would. But for the most part, guys that do that jobs between the tackles and on in. Nobody really ever knows for sure just how great a games they can have. So you take a defensive player, though, who can directly impact a game with an interception, fumble, big sack, or whatever.
Right.
That's where your eyeballs go to.
This kid, young man, he's supposed to be the next Dexter Manley.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna probably outdo Dexter Manley.
He might.
Yeah.
He might. We're hopeful.
Yeah.
Just like the doctor told you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll give you an I don't know. Are you going to die? I don't know.
Yeah. The Redskins have had 5 first-round draft picks.
Too many.
Well,
it's not supposed to be that way.
Well, I think that's just defensive linemen. That's defensive linemen. And I think that's what going to be their strength this year.
Well, what's fascinating, people look at this on paper.
Well, you don't play on paper.
And that's just it. Because I'm tired of hearing some of the whooping already. Somebody at the NFL Network said they're probably going to be the #1 defensive line in it. Do you know how bad this defense was last year?
Right.
This defense was terrible.
They was 28th in the league.
28th, it might have been best in one of the categories. They were last or next to last in damn near everything.
Right.
Yeah, and at the same time, it would. I don't know where. In other words. Basically, though, I don't want to say you can give anybody a pass, but when you get your head coach fired about 5 games into the regular season, I think it was something when they let Gruden go, then basically that your year it's upheaval. It happened, of course, it was a little bit later in the season with the Jets years ago. It was my last year with the Jets. That they fired the head coach after about the 5th or 6th, maybe 7th game of the season. It might have even been a little bit later than that. I can't imagine when you get it that early in the season, that towards the end of the season that happens, it's a little bit easier to deal with. But now you got this whole season and everything is in turmoil because the guy and he's trying to coach and maybe perhaps get a look to where they might say, hey, they turned it around, they won a bunch of games. But the players, unless they're really tied into this guy, they're kind of like, hey, it's every man for himself at this point, which is kind of what it gets down. And that may tell you a little bit about last year. Plus, I think, what's his name, Jonathan Allen, he was injured a game or two or whatever. He was knocked out. So I can see that, but just what you're saying, to me, when I looked at the depth chart, I knew they were going to a 4-3 defense, but I had no idea that, as down linemen, because is that what Young was in college, a down lineman? Was he
down lineman?
He was. Okay, so that's not a transition for him. But Sweat, I don't know that was he a down lineman too as well? Because they made him a linebacker last year. Now he's a down lineman. And then, you've got Allen and Payne. You've moved them to your tackles. So, you look at that on paper, that's a pretty formidable front four, if you will.
And a 43 front.
I mean, they're all first-round draft picks.
Yeah. Now, if you look at a
no
30,
excuses then, right?
If you look at a 34 front, they undersized.
Which is why they switched, because
right.
clearly they weren't having any success with it. And
Right.
why not?
Why not?
When you're rated that lowly, I mean, it was a liability.
You got to have big gorillas in that 34 front.
What do you mean? Well, for sure the nose tackle's got to be a big guy.
Yeah, big guy.
But do you need really big guys on the edges too?
No, in the 34 front,
Right.
yes.
You
yes.
do.
Well, that's why you got to have you have 4 linebackers that can come
Correct.
to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, because in some ways, I mean, I don't know that you'd have to see that, because it did seem like Sweat at times a little bit lost trying to be a linebacker.
Yeah.
Some guys can't make the transition.
Yeah. I don't think he really, when they say when he came out of Mississippi State or wherever, they say he ran like a 4.4 something, a 4.
yeah, it was-
Yeah, but he don't play like.
You're right.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are great at the combine.
Yeah, right. How was you at the combine?
No, I wasn't very good, really.
Yeah.
Not
They
really.
did have
I
it then?
No, I thought he was talking about cutting wheat. No, I never heard of the combine back in those days. Only combine I knew about was an International Harvester deck, and maybe a Massey Ferguson. Oh yeah, there's John Deere. It goes on and on.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me, Dexter, what do you look for? What are the main focuses in your mind for this team, in particular in the first game against Philadelphia? Philadelphia finished 9-7, limped into the playoffs, got beat in the wild card game against Seattle. They actually were that was a pretty good ball game, but the NFC East was a shambles last year.
Yeah.
Dallas, they
laid an egg.
They pooped their pants down the stretch there, and they were in control, and they made a mess of it. So what are you looking for out of this first game? What are you isolating on for the Washington football team?
I'm looking at the front seven. The 43, the guys down front, linebackers. Last year, they ran a 34. Like I said, they undersized, and when you run a 34, you just play gap control. Now with with the 43, these guys got to be downhill players, getting after it, not doing no reading, getting after, play the run and get to the quarterback. Mm-hmm. I think that's what. Let's hope they can do that. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for how can they get to the quarterback, mm-hmm. and can they help the secondary? You got to keep pressure on the quarterback, throw him off his back foot, how he sort of position himself, setting up, throwing the football. That all plays hand in hand. Front 4 helps the back end and situations like that. That helps get the turnovers going. Yeah. So that's what I'm looking for. I want to see Chase Young get to the quarterback. I don't have that kind of feeling about Sweat.
Right.
He just hadn't showed me that yet.
Right.
This is going his second year. I know Ryan Kerrigan going to be coming off the edges too. We'll just got to see.
Yep.
Yeah.
John, what are you looking for in particular on the offensive side of the ball?
Just they put 11 men on the field. I mean, start with the simple stuff. The big stuff will come later. It's 1 foot at a time.
Walk before you run.
Yeah, I saw it in a Tarzan movie. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a footstep, with the first step.
I know you want to break down the running backs because we're still trying to figure out who these guys are.
I wanted to get to that. And to me, in other words, we're talking about where you get one of those where you scratch your head type of deals. Last week when they announced that they were releasing Adrian Peterson, on the one hand, I was kind of like, wow, where did that come from?
Right.
And then at the same time, I get it.
Right.
Because Adrian is greater back as he's been, and he flashed. He had games, and I think this would have been his third year. So you go back to his first year, he gets over 1,000 yards.
Right.
An accomplishment. But if you look at it, it was in bunches. He'd get yards in bunches that he'd have and off of big runs.
Correct.
And so that put him over. But you would see games where he'd have maybe 25 carries and he'd have 150 yards, and then you'd see a game where he'd have maybe 15 carries and he'd have 30 yards. There wasn't any consistency, and I think because this team is new, they're building. There's not, and I think expectations are not high. I think they're low for the fans. That I think Rivera understood that, and he's looking at, he's figuring to be here for the long haul, so he's looking at the future, and he just feels like, that Adrian Peterson brings a certain work ethic and everything with him, but at the same time, when he's on the field, one of those young guys is losing experience, that he could that someday is going to be that player. And who knows, maybe based on what they saw from the running backs that they felt like, well, you know what, I think that we don't need Adrian here anymore because we are a young team, and let's just go that way. Right. And so that was a surprise, but like I said, I understand it. But ultimately, for me, I think it all gets down to, and you talked about the defense, it's got to be number 7. It's got to be Simba. I mean, if he doesn't, if he, and the jury's out. There's a lot of people that feel, I got to say, I still have trouble getting past the selfies on the sidelines. That to me is like, I can't, and I don't want to go back. But still, it tells you something. It's got to inform you of somebody's mindset. And, we can all change, but that's something you got to know that, okay, that happened.
A level of professionalism.
Yeah, you got to go, where is the head really? Who is it all about? Is it about him, i.e., is it about me, or is it about us? And, in a moment like that, you go, he kind of looks like it might be all about him.
He's
so
a me kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of get one can get that impression, but at the same time, you've got you got the same guys from the center to all the way out to the right. You've got your same offensive linemen, but the offensive line looks, they could be decent. You don't know what you got at running back, but you've got McLaren is really the guy that, for me, and that gives Haskins an advantage because they're familiar with one another. They played college ball together, and McLaren looks like he's good for it. So you got a wide receiver, then you got Sims who came onto the seams last year.
Your Kansas guy.
Yeah, I mean you got to count for him. So they've got, and then the fact that they let Peterson go tells you they feel pretty good about their running back. The offense could surprise a lot of people, and I think that's kind of, what you're looking at. You've got Norv Turner's son; he's now the offensive coordinator, and you've got Zampese, who's, I guess, the quarterback's coach. So you got some guys with, what do you call it?
Some experience.
Well, yeah, and in their bloodlines that they come from coaching background. Their fathers.
Sure.
I think actually the offense could surprise some people, and that's always the best way to do it when people expect you don't have anything. Because I don't think, like I said, there are no expectations. That takes pressure off everybody. They just go out and play football, and I think that's all. And they don't have to worry about, it's a 16-game season. There's a lot, there's a lot of growth that goes into this, and it ain't the team that wins, 3, 4, 5 games right away. You got to maintain consistency, and you can see it. And it's kind of the way the team was, Dexter, back when you were a rookie. That team lost 5 games in a row. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, then they go to Chicago and they win that first game. And then I don't know if we went to Miami the next week, and Miami was a playoff team, and they had a damn good football team, and took them in Miami all the way to the wire. It was all they could do, to pull that. That team ended up going 8-8, and then the next year they ended up going to the Super Bowl. But you could kind of feel it that there wasn't any pressure, but at the same time everything was kind of coming together. And there was just a sense about that. And I think that this team, I'm not predicting that that's what they're going to do, but going into it, they look like they could have, they might surprise some folks. Yeah. I'm just saying that. I mean, on the one hand, Washington's got they've been so notoriously for the last 20 years, they've just been dismal as a football team, but you never know.
I got a question. When you came back in '81, what kind of relationship did you have with Joe Gibbs?
He was new. I mean, I didn't know him any better than you did, so it wasn't anything.
Was it Joe or Coach?
It's always been Joe.
Yeah, yeah. You had talked about that earlier.
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, you got to appreciate this when it's all said and done. When Joe came out to Kansas in March or April, I can't remember what it was, of 1981, to see if he could lure me to come back. I mean, I'd already knew I was going to have to go back. I had money problems. Cash flow deal going there.
You said your banker recommended you take the meeting?
Yeah, he was already coming out looking at a place where he was going to put the swimming pool.
Whoa, time to get off that combine.
Yeah, exactly. Get on that football field. So he came out there, and and I never realized at the time someone told me that, but actually you were interviewing him, and I'm going, actually you could say that, I mean, he comes to the back door, and I mean, hand him a Budweiser as soon as he shows up. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. Joe didn't think, and he was basically, he had PTSD, post-stress disorder. But no, so when I came back, it would just kind of you had to start. I started at the bottom. There was a conga line of running backs here, and
Yeah,
I was
it
at the
was.
tail end of that.
Yeah.
But it just kind of evolved into the way things kind of went down. You got Joe Washington got hurt that second year. I got a chance to play, and then, as they say, the rest is history. Good history.
I tell you what, the Washington football team for this opener playing against the division champs from last year, which at the rocking record of 9-7. Philadelphia is banged up. They're banged up coming into it. They've had some significant injuries over the last couple of weeks. So that's something to keep an eye out on because they're a little dinged up here.
Didn't you say in the offensive line in particular?
Yeah, they had a couple on the offensive line and the wide receivers, which have been a point of concern for the team for the last couple of years. That they've got a couple of guys that it's questionable whether or not they're going to play, especially as of this.
I'm curious to
today,
know what
Friday,
the
September 11th.
boys in Las Vegas think about this game.
Last
played
I
in
saw, it is Eagles -5.5.
That's interesting because based on what you're telling me and based on this all first-round draft pick defensive line of Washington, and once again, as Dexter said, I mean, there's a couple. The one player here, Kevin Pierre-Louis, he's an outside linebacker. Never
Right.
heard of him. And then everybody else obviously is familiar from last year, except for Ronald Darby. I don't remember where he came from, cornerback. But I could see if they're dinged up in the offensive line, and the receivers are down. I mean, this is just looking at it from the outside and not without looking at film of what who's doing what. But you could see where Philly could have a tough time scoring if this
the line
defense.
is -6. We have a current update here, -6. So
So it's going up.
it's going up.
What do you mean when you say -6?
So the Philadelphia Eagles are favored to win the game by 6 points.
In other words,
That's
when
a
the game
bunch of
starts,
bull call.
when the
Some
Bull what?
books have it at 6.5.
That's bull cone.
That's bull call. Okay, but I'm glad to use that word, even though we can say whatever the heck we want.
Okay.
exactly.
It's a podcast, people.
Okay.
I was going to say that means Dexter. When the game begins, it would be like Washington would already have 6 points on the scoreboard.
On the scoreboard.
right?
Yep.
So, to give you
Dexter,
an
don't
idea.
go down this deep, dark path, my man. Stay away.
Yeah.
Stay away.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, that's the only reason I asked that because obviously I'm missing something because those guys out there are pretty sharp at what they do. And so my theory on the injured offensive linemen and the injured receivers, they're probably not taking much note of that. Either that or they don't think that Washington's going to score much against the Philadelphia defense.
what Washington, how they ended up last year, knew everything. There's more questions marks than there were at the end of last season. There just is.
Yeah.
And Philadelphia's, they made that last year was their third straight playoff appearance. Won the Super Bowl 3 years ago. So, you guys want to do predictions?
We can.
We can.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dexter.
Yeah.
You first.
Well, I think the Redskins, if you say the Eagles beat up the offensive lineman beat up, I think they could pin their ears back and get to the quarterback. I'm going to give the Redskins the nod. I think the Redskins are going to win this football. I can't tell you by how many, but I say they win this game.
I'm going to go with Philly now. I thought there was after the boys in Vegas saying -6. I'm going, well, that gets my attention, and I do think that Philadelphia has enough. They're a playoff team. Their coach has been there. He's done that. He's won a Super Bowl. I mean, not that Rivera's been in a Super Bowl, but I just think the Phillies probably got a little bit too much horsepower for him at this point in the season.
But John, you're a Redskin Hall of Famer. You're not a homer?
Yeah, I'm a homer. But you got to create the illusion you're not a homer.
but for predictions, I mean, you got some personal pride on the line here. You got to call it as you see it. You just don't drink the Kool-Aid, right, Dex?
I drank the Kool-Aid.
So you got them 16-0 is what you're saying.
Not 16-0, but I'd still
So you're going
drink
to pick them more often than not?
I will.
What if they go 0-5? But the next game you're going to go and
Then I'm gonna
they
shit
look
on 'em.
terrible. All I can say, I would like to say this
Dexter
though.
might turn on them faster than you know.
I want to say this,
yes.
John Riggins and Tod Castleberry. You say the Redskins don't get to the Super Bowl, but they will get to the NFC Championship
This year.
this year.
Who said that?
I said it. I feel that way.
But who told you to say that?
Dexter, do we have to get you some food, or is your blood sugar low? What's going on over here?
They're going to be in the NFC
I
Championship.
think they're going to be in the NFC Championship,
Whoa.
not the Super Bowl.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
If that happens, I guess,
Dexter, stay away from the casinos, okay? I want to coach you up. Stay away, my man. Stay away.
I was getting ready to go to MGM as soon as we get done here. I'm going to put some money down on Dexter's.
More Charlestown. You can get the sweet action. Can't bet in Maryland yet on the games. You can in Charlestown over in West Virginia.
Oh, is that right? MGM won't do you any good.
Nope. Maryland legislation has not fully approved it yet. So, but it's coming.
That's interesting.
It's coming. You can do it in D.C. and West Virginia.
Will you stick with that out throughout the season? What about when they get to 0 and 8? What are you going to do?
Well, I can't stick with
then you'll. So right now, it's the thing to say.
Yeah.
Dexter knows how to
What
dance.
if they get really flogged
on paper?
Sunday?
You guys been talking about on paper. On paper, they're going to get it to the NFC Championship.
I'd almost have to challenge you on this. How do you see them? Taking out New Orleans would be one team I could think of. Maybe throw Seattle out there. Even the Cowboys in their own division. Philly, the team they're playing on
Rams.
Sunday. I mean, the Rams.
Well,
I mean, you can go on and on with the teams that are.
Hell, Tampa Bay, who knows?
Yeah. I mean.
Oh, okay, John. My comeback with that is going to the NFC Championship against the Cowboys. The Redskins. No one gave us a chance.
Well, yeah.
No one gave us a chance to beat the Cowboys in that NFC Championship.
Yeah, but you guys were really good.
I know that.
Right.
We knew you were good.
Right. And you had. And
Then we had
with
the
all
diesel.
due respect, Dexter,
We had the diesel.
You had John Riggins. This team does not have John Riggins.
And that's a good way to end this podcast here.
Okay.
And we would be remiss here on September 11th as we tape this first show here that as we look back and we remember 9/11 and it's hard to believe how time has flown by here. And it's just, take the time to acknowledge those that unfortunately lost their lives and all the first responders and people that did the best they could on a really tough day for us. Your thoughts?
Well, I happened to be in New York City at the time that it happened. And I'm sitting there in the morning. It's about 10 till 8 o'clock. I just walked my daughter up to the little preschool that she went to. Came back, got a call from my wife's sister, who at the time was married to an FBI agent, was about ready to was engaged. And she called and just said, "Hey, do you see what's going on?" And no, she said, "Well, turn on your TV." Turned on the TV, and there's that one tower's smoking. It's on fire. And and we're sitting there watching, and next thing you know, the second plane flies into it. It was just like, it was just stunning. Now, I'm only about, as a crow flies, I'm probably about two and a half miles from the World Trade Center where I was. I was like on 39th Street. That's all the way down at the end of Manhattan. But there's other buildings between us, and I wasn't high enough up. I couldn't see any of this stuff going on.
You're in a high rise.
Yeah, but I mean, I was on the 10th floor.
Yeah.
So then there's a lot of bigger high rises between me and where that was going on. So we ran down, we sat there and watched it for a while, and I didn't think anything about it until that first building started to collapse. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, well, don't panic, okay? It's like I'm not going to. But after that first building collapsed, that's when I went, oh, this is not good. And I ran up and got my daughter, and we came home and started to make plans and all that to get water and all. Because right away I'm thinking, well, I knew the first one you're going, wow, how could it be? Because it was a bluebird day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky for that plane. You're thinking, what was the pilot doing? I mean, you think that. But then when you saw the second one, you knew immediately that something's going on here. We're being attacked. So, we get home there. And then I remember later that day, about 2 hours later, probably around, 10, 11 o'clock, all these people are going, the traffic stops. There's no more traffic in New York City. All these people are just walking up 9th Avenue. And it literally, in that moment, it was when they say it's surreal, you couldn't believe what you were seeing. It was a Tuesday morning, and it was literally, you thought they were filming a movie outside your apartment. You're looking down on it. And then for me, the ultimate side of that was, because I'm watching this, I'm only about 2-3 miles from where this whole thing happened. But I'm watching it on television for the next 2 or 3 days, right? So you got all this live coverage constantly, never stops. But I can't really, I'm like everybody. I might as well have been in Los Angeles because I'm getting what the people in Los Angeles are seeing the same information I'm seeing. So when I went in, and I remember later that, not very quickly after that, Rudy Giuliani, who was the mayor, he closed off. And my apartment, I looked right down into the Lincoln Tunnel, and there were 2 buses on the tubes coming into where I could see crossways. So there was no, basically he shut the island, or he shut Manhattan down. There was nobody could get in, nobody could get out. I'm sure he shut the trains off, the whole deal. But I remember then they removed those on Thursday, and we were still doing the show. When I was doing that show with George Michael and Will Vaughn and Sonny Jurgensen, I would drive down to Washington from New York. And I remember driving through the Lincoln Tunnel. And when you come out of the Lincoln Tunnel, you come out and you bend around. And when you bend around, you can look and you can see all the way down that far end of the island of Manhattan. I remember looking down there over my shoulder. I'm driving up, and those Twin Towers were not there. And I got a little bit of a lump in my throat. It was like seeing something, a landmark that had been there, and all of a sudden, literally gone. It's just hard to imagine. Like it was vaporized. There was nothing in that place. And so many times I drive out there and look down at the tip of the island, see those 2 big towers. I remember when I first was at the Jets, a rookie out at Hofstra, which is out in the middle of Long Island. And there were high rises that they put us up in, and I was up there on the top floor, like the 10th, 11th floor there, and we could, on a clear day, you could see the Twin Towers all the way from Hofstra, which is about 30 miles away. So yeah, it was something. There's no doubt about it. And then everything that went on, it's like you said, and all the people that day that came in, the firemen that went up to get people out of there and that were crushed, and when the buildings went down, just a horrible, terrible day. But and then it's like that the people that actually were there with the carcinogenic things that were in the air, a lot of the firemen, the stuff, the ailments that they came down with years afterwards. It was a blight for sure.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, my experience was how I felt. I was in Houston, Texas, just dropped Lydia off at work, and all of a sudden, I could tell something in the sky. It's like you see people moving around, or people was going to work, coming from work, and I didn't really believe it. When I got back to my place,
It was unbelievable.
yeah, it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe that some jackass was flying into this country in New York City going for the towers. But one thing I noticed, that was unity in this country. Yeah. I've always been a patriotic guy, and I was angry.
Yeah.
I felt angry. I felt angry.
You weren't American if you
still-
didn't.
Yeah, right.
Well,
You
there's still
just
anger
were.
over this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you can't really ever get over.
I felt
either.
and then I had a sense of pride that George II, he kept the city calm, the country calm.
Bush with the megaphone.
bullhorn.
Yep.
Yeah. I just thought those was historical moments. And then the flags started going up on buildings in Houston. And I tell you something, I got a big old flag in my house right now. I paid over $100 for. I put it in a big frame.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we need to get back to that. We need to get back to this, and that's going to close out this edition of the John Riggins Show. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we're going to be coming at you every Tuesday and Friday. Riggo out.
Riggo out.
Yes, sir.